Today is Saturday, November 28th, 2020, and today I'm going to talk about the big trees. And I'm not necessarily talking about the same thing as the really famous YouTube video, No Forest on Flat Earth. I do believe that when you look at mesas or things like Devil's Tower, it does look like a petrified tree stump. And so I think that there could have been these unfathomably huge trees that you could just see from hundreds of miles away. I think that's possible, but that's not necessarily what I'm focusing on in this video. I'm more focusing in on, it seems like in the 1800s, it was just a big goal of those in control to go around the earth and just chop down every big tree that was around. And it's part of obscuring history, and that's more what I'm focusing in on this video. So Zechariah chapter 11 verses 1 and 2. Open thy doors, O Lebanon, that the fire may devour thy cedars. Howl, fir tree, for the cedar is fallen, because the mighty are spoiled. Howl, O ye oaks of Bashan, for the forest of the vintage is come down. And it's kind of always been a big talking point for environmentalists, talking about old growth and how rare old growth forests are. Almost every forest has been chopped down, doesn't matter how remote of an area you go to. And it I mean, it's just a known thing that Europe used to be covered in trees, and now almost all the trees have been cut down. And I guess the first part of this video is talking about why are there so many images of people chopping down humongous trees in the past? It's like it was a huge project. Uh, it doesn't make sense why they would need to chop down the trees unless that was like their one goal. Hey, we're here to chop down all the big trees. Just to me, it's clear that that's what they were trying to do. It was like they all were trying to just one up each other on how many big giant trees they can chop down. No regard for, hey, maybe we should keep some of these giant beautiful trees around. And it's what Masons do. They destroy things and they write their own story and they obscure the past. And I don't know exactly. I think they just didn't want people to know about all the giant trees. They were on a mission to go around the earth and chop down all the giant trees that were around. And I just think it's interesting whenever I look back on the past, I don't see the same story that they sell us about, oh, cameras were crazy rare and you had to sit still for 5 minutes to get your photograph taken. That's clearly not how it worked. When I look at photos of the past, most people, they look like they know exactly what a camera is. It looks like they know exactly what's going on. It looks like a common everyday part of life. It's probably just that a lot of photography from back then just didn't survive, or it's just in private collections or something. But, and look how crisp and clear a lot of the images are, just great quality. It's just a thing though. A large percentage of photos from back in the day are photos of people chopping down these giant trees. Like, it was just the most important thing for people to do, to go chop down all the big trees. They really didn't need to be chopping down the huge trees to get lumber. They could have easily been more sustainable about it, planting some trees to use for wood and saving the giant big trees. Where were the people saying, hey, maybe we should save a good portion of these giant trees? Nope, they went in and chopped down 100% of the giant trees. And they did all the same signs and symbols back in the day. Look at the quality though. I was zooming way in to get to this picture. The hand in the pocket. It's the hidden hand. Great quality photos, but it's like these people, their entire job was to go around and find the big ones and chop them all down. Because like there's plenty of reasonably sized trees available, but they purposefully went after the huge ones to chop down. Really interesting going through and looking at all these photos. This person almost looks Chinese right here. But you see that there were plenty of smaller trees available to harvest. They didn't need to go around and chop down the huge trees, but it was like their mission to destroy all the big trees. Got a lot of one hands in the pocket. So casual. It does not look like, does it look like any of these people are mystified by a camera? Or does it look like these people totally know what a camera is and they're comfortable taking photos because they've done it before? It's just, you notice that they lie a lot about the past, especially when it comes to photography. Another thing is that people will always come out of the woodwork and be like, well, Photoshop was only invented, and they already were doing photo manipulation back then. I have a photo somewhere where I'll show it to you. Look at the hips, throwing out the hip. This, look, they already did hand signs for the camera back in the day. It's just a known thing. It's another thing where you learn these things in high school, and through just being a part of the Beast system, you just learn that certain things are like memes. It's always been a meme where, some kids would just say, haha, I snuck a middle finger in the group photograph. But they've always been doing that with things other than the middle finger. Like, nobody poses like this for the camera just like accidentally. So they already were doing clear hand signs back in the day, the people chopping down the big trees. This is a hand sign. You always see free martins do this hand sign. It means they got a micro. Like two back to next to one another doing that hand sign. A lot of these people, they look like you could just pick them up today off the side of the street. Hidden hand. A lot of magic wand hands going on. Just a huge industry. Very high-waisted pants. But I know some people that look just like this. Like the one on the right. And the clothing, it does almost look like Chinese inspired in a way. I don't know. Wow, this one. Plenty of other trees to chop down, guys. Look at the background. There are plenty of smaller trees to chop down. There was absolutely zero reason for these people to chop down such a giant tree. They just did it because they could, and I think that they really were on a mission to obscure history, to just ruin everything for the future. Oh, nobody in the future gets to love and, I don't know, love probably not the best word, appreciate these amazing living things, and they've just destroyed it all. Almost looks like hormoned out there. Widow's Peak, though. Widow's Peak on the alleged man, and no Widow's Peak on the alleged female. So something that's connected, and something that I don't talk enough about, it's a really interesting thing. So yeah, when I think back on old-timey photos, there's way too many old-timey photos of people chopping down ginormous trees. Like it was a big to-do. Like, more than anything, they wanted to go around and chop down every big tree that still existed. And another thing that I see a zillion images of is coal mining. There's a ton of historical fiction books that are talking about coal mining families. And coal mining is a huge Masonic industry. It's a magic wand hand right there. And what it is, it's charcoal. So this is probably connected with the big tree thing. They were felling all these big trees and just turning it into charcoal. And this is the age of steam power. They were using tons of charcoal to power all sorts of things. Sawmills. So I'll get to that in a bit, but coal mining. Look at the hand sign on this. They teach them young. They teach them young to do this, and they still do it today. No new thing under the sun. You still will see people today. If you flip through a family, whatchamacallit, with all the photos, photo album, you will see people doing hand signs all over because they're all over the place. They're all in your family. It's a big club. They just don't talk about it, and they communicate with signs and symbols. And they teach them young. That's why this young coal miner knows to throw the signs and the symbols. So yeah, coal mining and chopping down the biggest trees that you could find. But coal mining is a hoax. It's just charcoal. So they do it underground because how do you make charcoal? You burn wood without the presence of oxygen. Well, a really easy way to do that is to go underground and dig these. They dig a cave underground, and then they just load it. I don't know exactly how it works, but load it with wood, seal it off, and then light it on fire and let it slow burn. until it all turns into charcoal, and then they unseal the chamber, and then they mine it out. I'll actually show you. So look, photos like this, look how much they're cracking up. That's like blackface. The coal miners are a bunch of jokester, Freemartin, Freemasons, and they're just joking with this stuff. A lot of their photos, they like purposefully, oh, I'm gonna rub it all over my face. It's they make fun of it in Zoolander. The hat things that they got are crazy though. The little lantern things, really crazy. Interesting. There's like, I was just looking up at what people scratched on here. I don't know what it says. This was weird how the person's like leg was chained to the horse. These old photos were really cool though. Okay, look, you can just see though, in some of these you can just tell that it's charcoal. I guess I will say that I do believe that there might be natural charcoal deposits, and maybe it's from when a giant tree of past was struck by lightning and just slowly burnt, and the roots of these giant trees probably went pretty deep underground, and those probably turned to charcoal. So I do believe that there are certain natural charcoal deposits, but what they tell you is coal mining. I mean, you can see it looks very rectilinear. It's like they have a chamber and they fill it with wood and then turn it to charcoal. I'll show you some where it's absolutely clear that it's charcoal. It doesn't let me zoom in on this. If you go watch, there's certain coal mining excavation videos out on YouTube, and you can hear that it's charcoal because it like clinks. There's a certain like hollow, glassy sounding noise to charcoal, and you can hear that when they're doing the coal mining. Look at this. You can tell that's charcoal on the left. So they take these chambers. See how you can tell it's this built up chamber, and they fill it with wood, burn it, and they get charcoal. This was the one. Okay, that's charcoal. You can see that it's wood that's been burnt. That's not what they sell as coal mining is a big hoax, and I don't know how they get away with these secrets when it comes to stuff like this. I guess they just really don't let you become a coal miner unless you're a mason. But this whole world runs on trade secrets, and it's just inside jokes. It's just a thing. But to me, this one, you can't deny that that's just wood. So this was a great image. And again, why am I talking about coal mining right now? Because, well, they were felling all these humongous trees. They had to do something with it. So I think that's why the coal mining industry was so big. I guess I'll just point out here, somebody said once that they knew of some coal mining place, and the coal mining place always had tons of shipments of lumber coming in. So I don't know, it might be something interesting to look into. Isaiah chapter 2, verse 13, and upon all the cedars of Lebanon that are high and lifted up, and upon all the oaks of Bashan. These places were clearly known for their humongous trees. And I guess I'll just point out that there's a place in Oregon called Lebanon, and Oregon does have tons of forests of pine trees, and it probably used to have really big ones, like bigger than the sequoias, but all these big trees have just been chopped down. Seattle, a brief history of its founding. So if you look into the founding of Seattle, by then Henry Yesler was already building Puget Sound's first steam-powered sawmill on Elliott Bay. And so the whole economy of Seattle started out with lumber stuff. They would just come into an area, wipe out all the big trees. Steam-powered lumber mills were a huge thing. It's just another part of the media from back then, or what I know of the time period. When I just think of that time period, yeah, a big thing that I think of is sawmills. There were sawmills everywhere because they were chopping down the huge trees everywhere and they had to process it. Look at the wonky dead eye. Henry Yesler. They did the wonky dead eye thing back then too. Blinded in that eye. That's a dead eye. They've been doing this satanic stuff for as long as we have any records. The first Seattle fortunes were founded on logs and later milled timber. They would ship it to Seattle, I guess. Or ship it to San Francisco. So another big thing is sawmilling. No, coal mining, sawmilling, and chopping down giant trees. It seems like that was what people were doing in the late 1800s. Oh, here, I wanted to show you old-timey photo manipulation. This person wanted their identity to be obscured, and you can tell that they came in and they obscured the identity later. It looks like a cartoon drawing, you know, the cartoon NPC drawings? It looks like that. Photo manipulation has always been around. Ever since photography has been around, you can tell that this is somebody who wanted their identity scrubbed from this photo. For whatever reason. I don't know. Maybe the photo came out really bad and they came in and tried to make it look like a real person, but yeah, that's not a real person. I mean, it's a photo of a person, but then somebody clearly did some photo manipulation to make it, I don't know, look how bizarre that looks. They got the orange thing. It's kind of a big deal. Sawmills. You'll go hiking in remote areas and you'll read about what are the sights to see in this area. There will be old sawmills like this just all over the place with really impressive giant saw blades. Look at this photo. It reminds me of, this looks like log rides. Probably where they got the idea for log rides. Disneyland stuff. All the railroad tracks coming into the sawmill. That's a cool picture down here. Giant saw blade. And it's just worth pointing out that it does seem like sawmills are a big symbol in the media and kind of, so in Twin Peaks in particular, there's the old sawmill. And I think that the sawmill might be a type of symbol of obscuring history and shady businesses. It seems like sawmills are like a shady business and surrounded in mystery and people high up people. I don't know. There's something about sawmills. Somebody who knows more about the media could probably talk about instances of sawmills in the media. So what I think of is Fern Gully. And I think Fern Gully is an instance of a movie that they try to pretend like Fern Gully is talking about the future, but I think it's actually an allegory about the past, about how in the past we had giant, incredible forests that people came in and destroyed. Because like the Fern Gully thing, it's kind of like, well, what big forest? There's hardly any big forests anymore. They already have been chopped down. So when they present a movie like Fern Gully, oh, save the rainforest, Fern Gully, it's almost like a moot point. It's like, what forests? They've already almost chopped down all the forest as it is. So now when I look on a movie like Fern Gully, I think of it as they're actually telling us a story about the past. It's not a warning about the future. They're telling us a story about the past. This movie is one that just really impacted me when I was young, too. It has one of the scariest villains, too. The villain is this, like, black ooze. Very strange. Scary. You know, there's certain children's movies that you remember that it affected you when you were young. Fern Gully's definitely one of them. So here are just some notes passed forth between me and friends. They deliberately keep trees small. I'm not just removing the huge trees. Oh, it's not just removing the huge trees. They want to stop trees from getting noticeably large at all. The government crowds trees together when planting so they can't get that large. They also avoid planting fruit trees. They don't want people to realize how impressive and vast creation is. They want people to think spaceballs, fake robots, and tiny computers are impressive, but overlook the real and much more impressive life right in front of them. They allow the giant sequoias to remain so they can pretend there's only one special type of tree that gets really big, because evolution. If there were any giant mustard trees, they surely would have cut them down. The flood presumably killed the pre-flood giant trees, so the giant trees would be post-flood trees that were just around for huge amounts of time. I think the trees probably harvest energy from the air a bit like power lines do. And so there's just, you can pause and read some interesting extra stuff here. But I want to talk about this, trees getting energy, because I just saw this the other day. One thing that I noticed, and of course it wasn't until I was awake and started paying attention for things like this, something that you'll notice sometimes with trees is the entire tree will be still, but you'll see like one leaf that's sitting there oscillating back and forth. And it's so strange. And I think it has something to do with trees are meant to collect energy from the air. And that could be part of why there's leaves. I mean, Because if you really think about leaves, there are tons of leaves. It's like there's an excess of leaves if their purpose is to only gather light. If the only purpose of leaves was to gather light, you think that there would be like a lot less of them and they'd be bigger. And so I think that there's more to leaves than just collecting light. They probably also collect electricity from the air. This almost looks like a reverse lightning bolt. It's like this tree is reaching up into the atmosphere to get as much energy as it can. It's like the opposite of a lightning bolt coming down and spreading out. Why are leaves different sizes? Maybe to hit different oscillation frequencies. Just to go again, I saw this just the other day. You'll see it. Just start paying attention to leaves with pretty big leaves. You'll see that the tree is mostly still, but there will be like one or two leaves that are oscillating back and forth like crazy. There's energy in swaying trees. So this is talking about Avatar. Here's just another post. You can stop and read it if you want. But okay, so here this just triggered I don't know, a memory, a thought. In Avatar, a plot point was that the trees were augmenting the aliens' mental capabilities. Maybe in real life, trees and plants are related to psychic powers that people have, people coming to the same topic or conclusion together without speaking. Information that seems to be shared among people without talking, like a telegraph pole boosting signal at set intervals so it can arrive at its destination. So just what this reminded me of is, you know how they take their telecommunication towers and they dress it up like a tree. So there is a connection here between what this comment is talking about. When they want to obscure a telecommunication tower, they dress it up like a tree. In California, you get a bunch of palm tree ones. And so there could be something to this. Kind of interesting. Tree also gets used a lot in data structures or in family trees. And look at this, they picked orange. Family tree showing the relationship of each person to the orange person. Orange is 33. If you read Genesis 1, I'm not going to read it all, but God brought forth grasses and trees before the sun was even around. And coupled with this, 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 8, but beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is one day. There could have been a huge amount of time where plants and trees and things were around before civilization. So by the time Adam and Eve were about, and by the time civilizations were here, there could have already been thousands of years, as you know, today's time, passing at that point, and there could have been just humongous trees at different parts over the earth. So here's an interesting thing, how one man accidentally killed the oldest tree ever. So this is a story that I remember being told. These bristlecone pines are very, very old. In 1964, Donald Rusk Curry killed the oldest tree ever. To this day, there has still never been an older tree discovered. The tree was a Great Basin bristlecone pine, and Curry didn't mean to kill it. It was an accident, and one he didn't really understand the ramifications of until he started counting rings. Basically, Curry got his tree core stuck in the tree, so stuck it wouldn't come out. An unwitting park ranger helped him by cutting the tree down to remove the instrument, and later Curry began to count the rings. Eventually, he realized that the tree he had just felled was almost 5,000 years old. And so this person got devastated by this. And I think so when I was totally asleep, when I would read stories like this, I would almost feel like the people are overreacting. I was just like, well, you're just a scientist doing your job. And, why would you feel so bad about something like that? And I think it's because usually the people in these types of positions, they're illuminated individuals. There's a reason that people like this get so passionate about this stuff. It's because they know that this tree that's 5,000 years old has been around they probably know that the earth is really young. So they know that 5,000, because if you believe in all the space balls and the millions of years and stuff, you know what I'm talking about, where people will come out of the woodwork and they'll say, so what, 5,000 years, that's a blip. But the truth is that it's not. 5,000 years is a huge deal. And that's why these people get so invested in these projects and they get so devastated if something like this happens, because this person knows that this tree maybe was around when like Enoch was alive. and it's that serious. If you believe all the NASA outer space Spaceballs stuff, you might think that a 5,000-year-old tree is no big deal. So that's just something I think about that. So this is just more info on the bristlecone pines. You can pause it and read it if you want to. Ring counting is not 100%, but there are some really old trees out there. I thought it was interesting too how these are their two oldest trees that they have, these bristlecone pines. One of them they call Prometheus, the other one they call Methuselah, and Methuselah is biblical, said to have died at the age of 969. Okay, I don't know if I believe those numbers. He lived the longest of all figures mentioned in the Bible. According to the book of Genesis, Methuselah was the son of Enoch. So that might be a hint. These trees, the reason that these people are so interested in these old trees and that these people become devastated if they were ever to kill something like this, because these trees were probably around when Enoch was alive, or Enoch's son. That's my opinion anyhow. Psalm chapter 92, verse 12. The righteous shall flourish like the palm tree. He shall grow like a cedar in Lebanon. Wherever Lebanon really was, they're very known for their cedars. I guess that's something I forgot to do in this video, but when I hear of Lebanon today, I don't think of like a place covered in ginormous trees. So you'll have to let me know. Does what modern day they call Lebanon, are there giant trees there? Because I know that there's a place in Oregon that's called Lebanon, and Oregon surely has tons of giant trees, and it's the 33rd state. So it could be a very important place in the Bible. And I don't know how much more I got. Oh, just one more point that I want to make. But I want to go back to this. I think that this is probably the best instance of the Bible that references people going in and chopping down all the old trees. Open thy doors, O Lebanon, that the fire may devour thy cedars. Howl, fir tree, for the cedar is fallen, because the mighty are spoiled. Howl, O ye oaks of Bashan, for the forest of the vintage is come down. And I just want to end on this note because it's a thing in the media. Oh, hippies chaining themselves to trees. Don't chop the trees down. And people going and living in trees. They call it tree sitting. And I think that this is an attempt to belittle that idea. They want you to think that it's a silly, you got to be a tree hugging hippie idea to say save the trees. But I think that maybe in the past, when it seems like they were hell bent on going all over the earth and destroying, cutting down all the big trees, maybe there were some people that chained themselves to these giant trees and said, don't chop it down. Maybe there were some people that went up and lived in these trees and tried to fight, but we just don't hear about them. But from what I've seen, it seems like the evil people were just really fast to go grab any land that they could and chop them down. But maybe in places like Europe, maybe there used to be giant trees like in the big cities, and maybe there were people that protested and chained themselves to it and lived up in the tree, but I'm sure that they all just got chopped down. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. God bless everyone.